Hey everyone, welcome to Two Car Pros. My name is Ryan. Today I'm going to show you exactly how to change the upper and lower radiator hoses for a 2014 Ram 1500 with a 5.7 liter V8. This isn't very complicated. This is something you could totally do in your driveway. I don't even think you need jacks or a jack stand, and very little amount of tools to get this job done. It's really important to replace these lower radiator hoses and upper radiator hoses because as time goes on, they age. That rubber only lasts for so long, it needs to be replaced, and you really don't want it leaving you on the side of the road. That is like one of the most common failures I see on the side of the road is an old truck with one of the radiator hoses just gone, dumping coolant all over the ground. That's no good, leaves you stranded, bad for the environment, all around not great. So it's good to be proactive and get this done beforehand. And before we get started, please dispose of your coolant responsibly. Don't keep it around dogs, kids, animals, anything like that, because it does smell kind of sweet, and there are stories of animals and people drinking coolant and having negative effects and even passing away from drinking it. So it is a little bit on the dangerous side, and you want to dispose of that properly. With all out of the way, let's jump into it. And before we get started, squeeze the upper radiator hose to make sure that there is no pressure in the system. It is completely cool. Do not open the system unless you can squeeze this hose very easily. And the engine's cool. And then we're going to open the radiator cap. You can even just remove it, that's fine. Set that aside. So I'm going to go ahead and walk underneath the truck so you can gain a better sense of where we are working today. And right here is the radiator petcock drain, and we need to access that. And no, unfortunately on this truck, you might notice there's a lot of plastic missing. Usually there's like a piece that goes here and a whole shroud that goes around the radiator. This truck doesn't have it. I'm sorry, I can't show you that. I can't show you what I don't have. So you either need to remove that or there might be an access hole of some sort, but this is where we're gonna be today. So now we can loosen this drain with a 16mm wrench. And right here, it's already kind of dribbling out, is where the coolant is going to come out. So you just need to loosen this, and usually these aren't on crazy tight. There we go. And just let it all come down into a bucket. So once your coolant is slowed down to just a small drip, we're going to go ahead and retighten this petcock drain. And this is just plastic, so just, wrist tight is fine, because if you bust this off, well, you're into buying a new radiator, and that would not be fun. So on the other side of the radiator is this spring clamp, and you could use a pair of channel locks to get that off, relieving the tension and moving it, but I've found that a spring clamp pair of pliers makes it very trivial, and the link is located down below in the description to this super handy tool. See how easy that was? Crazy easy. So now we can get the lower radiator hose off. I've always found it easier to push on it from the front rather than try to pull on it because of the elasticity in the rubber. Alternatively, you could just cut this off with a razor blade and be careful. Alright, it's moving pretty good. And then be careful right here, wear gloves, eye protection, have your bucket ready, because there could be a decent amount of coolant still in here. There's some. And then we can remove the other clamp, or at least loosen it, and move it backward on the water pump side of the lower radiator hose. And move that backward. And these can be a little sticky, so don't be frustrated if they don't come off right away. There we go. Okay. It's moving. We're good. There we go. And then just like on the lower radiator hose, the upper radiator hose is exactly the same. There we go. If you're wondering what I'm doing there, I'm basically unsticking the rubber from the metal because it kind of vulcanizes to it after a while. And then we can just remove that hose right there. Easy. And then I'm going to remove the upper radiator hose from the thermostat housing using my special tool here. Link it down below in the description. And just walk the clamp backward until it's clear of that barb. And then we can just wiggle the tube off there. So you might notice that this upper radiator hose is held on with a tactical shoelace. This was a field repair years and years and years ago, and it's held on the AC lines, which I don't agree with. I would have fixed it a long time ago, but not my truck, so we're fixing it now though. So normally this would be on a radiator shroud, and this clip goes right into it, and you can just pull that right off, but obviously not the case here. End of an era, end of the shoelace fix in the desert era. That shoelace held on for 12 years. Wow. Very funny though. So next I'm going to take this AC Delco lower hose, link down below in the description, and replace it. I've already put my spring clamps preloaded on the piece. Make sure it's cinched all the way there. Looks great. When you release the spring clamp, just make sure that the clamp is behind the barb, which it is right now. Looking good. And do the same thing for the water pump side. And again, release behind the barb. So the barb end is like right where my thumb is, and the clamp is behind it. So that looks excellent. So next we're going to replace our upper radiator hose, and I've already transferred our clamp. So put this side on. There we go. I'm just going to kind of line up the other side so I can get the clock of the hose right. Looks pretty good. So because the new hose is a little bit thicker than our last one, we kind of have to do this the dangerous way, which is a pair of channel locks so we can get maximum clamp out. Just watch your fingers, you really don't want to get it pinched. It really hurts. There we go. Making sure that you are behind the barb, as the barb end is about where my finger is. So now, we can do the same thing for the water pump side, or thermostat housing side. Just slink it on down like that. Okay, similar situation. Hose is a little thicker than last one. Gotta do it the channel locks way, which is super fun. So there's our final product, what that should look like. I use a pair of channel locks and just kind of walked it down so it's behind the barb right here at the end of my finger and where my thumb is. So this is what your final product should look like. Shouldn't be able to pull it off at all. That is awesome. So the next thing I'm going to do is place a funnel. I have this fancy funnel that I really like using that can kind of just perch itself on top of our radiator inlet like this, and it's kind of neat because it has this stopper. So like, let's say you filled it all the way up and it's not accepting anymore, you can stop it like this and take the funnel away. I've always liked using this one, and the link is located down below in the description if you want the same one. This is the coolant we're using today, orange coolant. You might notice I'm using concentrate because this is probably going to take a good amount of coolant, and I can just keep adding a gallon of concentrate, a gallon of water. If you're not comfortable doing that and you think you might mess up the ratio because you want to keep it right at 50-50, kind of depending where you live, then just get the pre-diluted stuff. So it'll definitely take this gallon, if not much, much more. And just keep adding coolant and water in that 50-50 ratio until it stops adding, and effectively what you've done is filled the radiator, but you obviously haven't turned on the water pump yet because the engine's not on. So once it's completely, filled up and it's not really going to accept anymore, we can turn the engine on and it'll drop that level. So now that I have a gallon of coolant in there, pure concentrated coolant, I'm going to add distilled water, a whole gallon of it, and this will ensure that my ratio stays at 50-50. And you could totally use gallons you get from the grocery store. That's totally fine as long as it's distilled. I just happen to have a distilled water source for my CNC machine, so I just wandered this over and filled it up. I also get this comment a lot. No, you don't need to mix them before they go into the radiator. As long as you know you've kept your ratio at 50-50, trust me, it will mix inside of the system. You don't need to worry about that. You'd be very surprised how often I get that comment. And that's fine, but I figured I'd answer that now. So you'll get to this point where it's not really going down anymore. It's very slowly letting air out of the system, but there's no like bleed spot where you can just kind of let air out. So what you need to do is start the truck for maybe 2 seconds and just kind of let it suck that water down. You can let it run a little bit longer if you want. It's not going to overheat immediately or anything. You're okay. So with the truck on and the heater on full blast, we're just going to keep an eye on it. We're going to keep a look on the temp sensor, make sure the truck isn't overheating, kind of feel around, don't put your hands anywhere near where the engine rotates over, and just see if the radiator feels like it's getting hot, the hose is getting hot. If something seems off or too hot, just turn the truck off until you figure it out. But what I'm going to do is just watch this coolant level, because as the thermostat opens, this is going to drop. So we need to just kind of keep an eye on it and wait for that moment to happen. So this is the reason I wanted you to turn the heater on full blast, because we can see according to the truck, it's 179 degrees on the coolant temp sender. So this should mean that the heater is blowing hot. Oh yeah, that's very, very toasty. That's how I know the heater core doesn't have a bubble in it. And then just sit here and watch it idle. Does it get super hot or is it all right? Look at the temp gauge, look at the coolant sensor right there. If it gets like over 210, I would turn it off and figure out what went wrong. Maybe you're low on coolant, maybe you need a new radiator cap. Something's off, but this is perfectly fine idling at 179. As you can see, it's currently 68 degrees outside, and obviously that's going to change if it's like 110, so you have to kind of grade it on a curve like that. But right now, this truck seems perfectly good, ready for a test drive. So I've driven the truck around for a couple of hours, couple heat cycles, let it get cold, let it get hot, quite a few times. Everything is perfectly good. And I'm just going to double check the coolant level, of course, making sure there is no pressure in the system. You can grab this, it's totally nice. The engine's completely cooled, so I can remove this cap. And then just look in there. Is there coolant? Yep, it's all the way up to right about there. Awesome. Looks like there weren't any more air bubbles to deal with. And then take a look in the overflow. If it's completely empty, put a little bit in there. You want it about halfway, and you should be all good to go. And then, of course, make sure your radiator cap is on nice and tight. And if this radiator cap is old and you're dealing with some overheating problems, consider replacing the cap, because if the system can't build up pressure, it will overheat. And most of the time, the culprit is the radiator cap. $5 part, really easy to change out, but this one seems to be working just fine, so we're gonna run it. So that is how to replace both your upper and lower radiator hoses for a 5.7 Ram 1500 from 2014. Again, not super difficult. This is something you should be doing proactively. If your truck is 10 years old or older and you don't think you've ever done the hoses, I'd run out and do them right now. The hoses are very cheap, the coolant's very cheap, and all the applicable links are located down below in the description. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this video helpful or interesting, please consider becoming a member by clicking that join button down below. It's a direct way to help the channel out. Barring that, a like, comment, and subscription go a huge way in helping my channel out and lets the YouTube know that I did a good job, and I'd really appreciate it. Thanks again for watching. I'll see you next time.